Thanks for staying with us now. Sex education is high quality teaching and learning about a broad variety of topics related to sex and sexuality, exploring values and beliefs about those topics and gaining the skills that are needed to navigate relationships and manage one's own sexual health. Comprehensive sexuality education enables young people to make informed decisions about their sexuality and health. It teaches young people the life skill necessary to assume responsibility for their own behavior and to respect the rights of others as it relates to sex. So how can parents in Total's world navigate the subject of sex education, especially with a high level of awareness children have on this subject matter today? Please let us hear what you have to say. Remember, you can join the conversation. Send us an SMS or WhatsApp to 081-803-84663. I'll bring in Jessica in a minute. I just want to hear quickly. Let me start with Isi, you're the educationist here. So tell me your experience with children and the subject of sex. You know, when it's mentioned, how do they react?
Of course, children will shy away, especially the teenagers. They would act as if they don't know anything about it, but in actual fact, they know a lot. So they need to trust the adult or teacher before they can actually open up to express themselves and tell them about a thing or two about what they know. And it's important for us to understand that we need to understand that the teachers have a huge role to play in terms of sex education. Why is this? Because they spend a lot of time with you. They spend a lot of time with you. And in the process, you get to see them in their real element, which their parents don't get to see because they go to work. They go to work most of the time. So it's important that the teachers, you know, bond with the students.
And the teachers are aware as well.
And they're also aware of what they're supposed to tell the children.
I like the part of being aware.
Yes.
Not just having that responsibility, but knowing how to go about it as well. So even if you're with me 24/7 and I don't know how to have that conversation, the right words to use, at what stage to introduce what, and even when I realize that you have probably gone past your age, how to also handle myself and have that conversation, then it's going to be counterproductive. So yes, you have the responsibility, but do you know how to manage that responsibility?
Very true.
Absolutely. I'm just wondering in my head, how does religion play in all of this? You know, what role religion plays with sex education and children? Because a lot of times, I'm a Christian, but when I hear some people talk about sex, I just put my hand on my head. Can you just please keep quiet? You know, like, don't say a word. You're misguiding.
Exactly.
You know, what you're saying is not it at all. You know, just when you don't know something, look for the expert. And that's why we found one. Absolutely. So let me bring her in. Coach Jessica Sampson, popularly known as Jess Energizer.
So much energy.
That's the energy.
Is an intimacy and marriage counselor. She's the author of the book Woman, Sex Was Made for You Too, and how to sex educate your child. Now, Coach Jessica helps couples enjoy sex in marriage and organizes private coaching for women with sexual inadequacies, as well as teaches sexual awareness against sexual child abuse to children as well. And she's joined us live in studio. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
I love your smile. You look so pretty. I love the hair.
And her hair.
Yeah, very lovely hair.
Thank you. Thank you.
Are you from Edo State?
Delta.
We got it. We got it.
We can identify
We got it. We got it.
Edo is actually Bendel.
Yeah, both Bendel.
Yes.
So yeah, I can identify. Thank you so much.
I'm here.
So thank you so much for joining us. I mean, sex education is, it still remains a topic that many people, many parents still, even with this 21st century knowledge that we have, technology and everything, and you know, the influx of social media and everything, people still shy away from that topic, especially when it relates to the awards to children. Why is that so?
Okay, so we have, thank you so much for having me here. First of all, we have so much misconstrued messages around sexuality.
Okay.
And like you said, I was listening to you where you talked about religion, culture. So there's so much faulty undertone around sexuality. Now, when you talk about sexual or sex education for kids, a lot of parents just go like sex. They're not thinking what kind of education. First of all, you know, when you talk about sex education, it's the child's basic right or basic need. When you talk about regular maybe education, you talk about maybe food, water, is as good as also talking about sex for these kids. So when you have that in your mind, that this is so much of a regular conversation, like you want to talk about self-worth, values, that's how sex works. But whereby you think that you have one, you know, they touch you now, you're pregnant, that fear. Already, most of us are living with trauma of the past. Even as married people, we can't just talk about sex like, who are you to talk about sex? So you see, it's something that has guided us wrongly or guided us wrongly from, you know, time. And, you know, coming to talk about this looks so much funny for a lot of people. Like, why, like, you're going to be on TV to talk about this topic? First of all, we are sexual beings, first of all. So this should be normal. So this is why we have this conversation almost like a taboo, almost like a no-go area, because we already have a faulty undertone or a conditioning. You know, when you have a conditioning, so you're wired to think that way. So even as we are, maybe one or two of us might still be so uncomfortable to talk about it. So
I'm not uncomfortable.
Yes, you said exactly. You know,
No, that's not true. I said
It's true.
exactly.
So
It's general.
Okay.
because even when we say, okay, let's have this conversation, I'm very sure you'll be selective what to say, how to say, you know.
Not on this table.
I love that.
So if I want
So
to,
that's-
okay, you want to go?
I just wanted to ask,
Okay.
because you mentioned values already and taking it back to self-esteem. Is there a lot of similarities or link between sex education and self-esteem?
Exactly. There's a lot. First, you see, let's say, for instance, a child who's been abused. You will definitely know that this child will be affected by way of confidence, posture, how to speak in public, because you've been abused mentally, emotionally, physically. So you cannot perform 100 because there is that secret. I mean, I think WHO was talking about 1 in every 4 girls maybe has something to do with sexual secrets. And 1 in every 13 boys has a sexual secret. So if you find a child, like I can look to a child or children and I can tell that this child is troubled. So if you see that child, you know that the value, there's something about the self-worth of this child. There's something, you know, covering this child, maybe shame, pain, he or she can probably express. There you know that there's a problem somewhere. So definitely it affects the self-esteem and, you know, till even marriage, because a lot of us who are married still have a lot of shame around sexuality and we're still dealing with the hurt of the past. So that also affects as well.
Wow.
The
Because
yes,
we
is
can
that
actually
serious?
understand where you're coming from. Now, in today's world, a lot of parents feel that they've actually left parenting or taking care of their children to the school owners or the schools, especially private school owners. And in this process, we have seen parents, you know, relegate some of their responsibilities to the school and the teachers. So whose role is it to actually educate the children on sex education?
Okay, parents first of all, because you see, the grooming of a child starts at home or starts in the home front. As soon as the child is born, your life can never be the same. How you teach the child, junior, sit, stand, that is education. So you see, before you start putting the child or taking the child to a school to become knowledgeable, maybe during the developmental stage of this child, you definitely would have gone through maybe 1 year with your mom or, you know, during breastfeeding, for instance.
Exactly.
And then the child sort of, you know, bites, you tap, like, you know, so they communicate. So that's how, you know, parenting starts. And why I'm saying it has to start from home, you want to be able to apply the parenting style of using the ABC, acceptance. You know, as a parent, you know, you have that belonging and that competence of a mother to a child or a father to a child. So what you get from school is external or is secondary, but it starts from home. Because what do you tell a child who is too curious at 2 years or maybe 2 years or 1 year, like, Mom, I feel a certain way. Would you wait for the teacher? So it has to start from home.
And you have to
Go ahead.
Okay, do you think it should be incorporated into sexual education? Do you think it should be incorporated into the education curriculum?
Oh.
And do you think also sorry, number 2 question.
Okay.
Do you think that when is the right age for us to start teaching our children about sex education? When is the right age?
Okay, the first question you
is about incorporating it into our school curriculum.
I'm looking forward to a world where we have the schools correct. I think I said that in my book, where sex education should be seen as every other kind of subject, like maths, English, you have biology. We actually have something like that, but we don't stress it.
Biology.
Yes, but we don't, you don't stress the part because it boils down to the conditioning that we have, and it's actually part of a circle of sexuality. We have 5 circles of sexuality. We have the sensualization, which a child might probably not have a business in. You have sexualization. You have the part of intimacy. You also have sexual reproduction or sexual health. And there's a part of sexual identity, which is more of the child's business. Like, sexual identity comes with, I want to know my body parts, body autonomy, body confidence. Okay? So we're not even talking about intimacy for a child who's 2 years or 5 years or 10 years. So you see, a lot of parents or the world thinks that once you just say sex education, you're going to be talking about intimacy. No, the child is just being curious and inquisitive. And something has to fill the mind of that child. Because if you don't as a parent, something else will fill. But surely something has to fill that curious
this your
mind.
identity. Let's leave that matter.
I mean,
That's
where I was going to.
But you see, because it's so deep. It's deep.
It's some climb now. The child will tell you, I'm a they, I'm not he, I'm not her.
But so
there's just so many things happening right now. But let us bring it down to Nigeria. That we can still identify boy and girls. Yes.
But that's exactly what I mean. When we talk about deeper aspects, that's you identifying your gender. But sexual identity is generic to the context of what we mean now. Like I said, body confidence, body parts, body organs. A child is wanting to know about my body parts and my private parts. We're not talking about pleasure at this point in time. You see the difference? So do not even misconstrue, because that's what we usually get. And then you cannot bring yourself to tell your child this, because you're already having a misconception of what sex education is for a child.
So when you said, I was going to ask a question, AC. So when you said boy, 1 in every 3, is it 4 girls now?
4 girls.
Has a secret.
Sexual secret or sexual.
And 1 in every 13 boys.
14 boys, yes.
Have a sexual secret. So it boils the question, is that why, because most times I see that a lot of people that teach about sexual like body parts and all of that to children, they focus more on the girl child. Why is that so? Is it because they are the most vulnerable when it comes to maybe abuse or whatever? Because boys do get abused too as well, but it seems like most times when I see a lot of things, my breast, my this, it's more centered around the girl child.
Okay, so truth is, girls are actually more vulnerable, but boys, in fact, the recent research has more boys being abused. But this is the twist. Most boys who are men today are wired to think that there is no vulnerability, there is no weakness. So if you can express, or if we can find men who are ready to express themselves deeply, you will find out that we also have a lot of boys or a lot of men who had that abuse early enough from aunties, but who is ready to talk like, oh boy, you should be used to this. They have it. You know how they do the bro code and stuff. But for a girl child, she's probably withdrawn. So you can sense, because for women, we're mostly emotional. So you might be able to tell exactly what you may be able to discern. But for a boy, you don't even cry. Like, we find men not like, why are you crying? You're a man. And that is no thanks to patriarchy, because you see the system tries to make men a certain way. But truth is, a lot of men who were boys were actually abused.
I was going to even ask that, but you know what, we need to take a break now, because I was going to say that the impact of that wrong sexual orientation of a boy child what
also affects the woman.
Yes, in the future. But let's take a break. When we return, we'll take a very short break. We'll continue the conversation. Okay, thanks for staying with us. If you just tuned in, it's our focus tonight is on parenting and sex education for children. Please let us hear what you have to say. Remember, you can join the conversation. Send us an SMS or WhatsApp to 081-803-84663. So before we went on the break, I was going to ask, I was saying to you that, you know, most of this wrong sexual orientation for boys, because a lot of them were introduced to sex by house helps and all of that, and they found it normal because, you know, it was just the normal pleasure. I think now the boys that are crying out more are the boys that are being sodomized, where you have men, you know, trying to, you know, molest boys, you know. So those are the ones that are really coming out now, because that is, you know, that one is a different experience,
right,
compared to when it is a woman that, or a mature girl that is abusing the child. That is, for them, is pleasurable, but the other way around is not so pleasurable for the boys. But I was going to say what that impact is as an adult. You know, how does it affect you when you're grown? Because why is important we're mentioning this? It's if we can curb it, or we can stem that menace, because a lot of men and women are adults today, but they are behaving like children. You know, because there's a wrong orientation that, you know, that has groomed them up until their adult age. You know, so. What are the some impacts?
So what you have right there is sexual attachment. So the sexual attachment of a child can be detrimental to the future of that child that becomes a man or a woman over time. And that's why you see we have a lot of, you see the biggest issues we have in marriage is usually finance and sex. But sex is usually something we would not want to talk about, or we would not want to bring to the open. But it's a big deal, because you see your attachment will probably define your functions, you know, as, you know, in your intimacy lifestyle for you and your spouse. And that's why I like to talk about cognitive behavioral technique or therapy. We don't know about therapy in Nigeria, Africa. It's just maybe of recent, you know. First of all, we don't even have this. Thank God for the awareness that we have. Truth is, a lot of couples right now actually going through a lot, because you see couples, you see husbands, wives, who tend to, like a ripple effect of, this is what I know, this is what I have been introduced to, and that is what they understand when it comes to sexuality. Now, a child who is always being abused by another man would always, in marriage, okay, I think this kind of, I feel good with this, because the body doesn't forget. So pain becomes almost pleasure. And then that's what, but over time, when you go through maybe therapy or conversations, and you start finding yourself healing all over again, and you realize that all the while was trauma, not actually pleasure.
Okay.
So there's a lot.
I need us to actually break it down and bring it down to sort of practical for how people would understand what they should do and what they shouldn't. First, there's a question she asked that you've not answered, which is on when do we start? And okay, you want to respond to that first?
Okay, there's no right time to start sex education for kids, but I'd like to say 3 years is fair enough. A child can be 2 years and start asking, Mommy, why am I like this? And why is my sister like this? Because this is a family setting. A child is not thinking what you're thinking. A child is wanting to know about organs and not orgasm, like I always like to say. So tell me about this. And what you would tell a 2-year-old isn't what you'll be telling a 10-year-old. So you have 0 to 3, 3 to 5, 5 to 8, and then it goes on and on, where you start having the healthy conversation around consent and consequences. Those are, you know, stages, because puberty is setting in, hormones are flying everywhere. But a child is just wanting to know. They like to ask questions. Like my daughter was asking me, where's Jesus? And I said, up there. She said, up there is the sky. And I'm like, okay, you pause. So times when you don't know what to say to a child, don't murmur. Just hold on a bit and get to like, okay, what do you think? Like, throw the question back. Is that easy as ABC? Like, make it as comfortable as every other aspect of your teaching.
So for parents who would want to, I mean, we have new parents now, like you said, 21st century parents, and they still find it difficult to have this conversation, right? Are there books they can get that can help guide them, like you said, 2 to 3, 3 to 5, this is what you should have? I know there will be cases that will be an exception, and you probably have a child that is going way faster than you can handle. But looking at the norm, are there things you would suggest they get to help them navigate this process better?
Should I say that you ask for my book? Would that be too much? But guess what? Everything is on the internet. Like, ask questions, find out a lot.
Internet is dangerous.
And sometimes it can be misleading.
I'd rather come to you
It can be misleading,
Yeah.
but truth is, and sometimes, like my 2 books, it was just out of a need. Like I get people like, Jess, can you imagine what my child just asked me? I'm like, what are you thinking? It's only normal. What you need to do this, and this. So it was just direct for me to say how to sex educate your child. Is that easy? Is that simple? And if a parent listening here and now, we've said it all, there's nothing as, how do I say it? There's nothing deeper than this. If you can start, we're not looking for you to quote one scripture, you know, because you see, a lot of parents, what they do is terrify a child. They don't teach the child. So what most parents are doing, they're actually teaching, but they are terrifying their children, not teaching. So what you want to do is teach. As good as that is your private part. And every part is private. When you make that private part a special private part, they become even more inquisitive. Like, Mommy, why are you saying this? The mouth is private. Your body is private. Body confidence. You talk of body affirmation. Growing up, you know, there was the style my mom was using. A lot of African Nigerian parents were mostly authoritarian. And authoritarian parenting style is just, do this. You're just instructing. You're not suggesting. And kids are not stupid. They have their mind. They have the mind of their own. They have their own thoughts and belief. So what you want to do is to guide them through while you're still passing the message.
Okay, I have a comment.
Okay, let her take a question first.
Okay, the question goes like this. Now, let's take it practical again. Okay? I had a discussion with someone earlier, and the person said that there is no point you actually telling young teenagers to, you know, or teenagers basically to abstain from sex or whatever. Don't teach abstinence. What you should be doing is enlightening them on the consequences and contraceptives and stuff like that. So what's your take on that?
Okay, so I have a way of teaching. Now I'm going to introduce abstinence with you having the judge yourself. So I don't hide. I bring everything to the table. Like we talk about STIs, like this is what you want. So consequences over consent. But if consent comes to play, now this is you. Are you willing to go through this without putting fear? My job as a parent is to guide you. I am not an authoritarian parent. You see, sometimes you see parents are neglectful. That's another style. But now I'm working with you.
I like that.
I'm working with you.
I did that with my son.
Yes, and it's easier because there you win that you have this trust of, and if peradventure anything happens, they are willing to tell you like, I think I may like.
Yeah, he told me.
You see,
I kissed the girl. I said,
Okay,
and then you see that's so
tell us your
beautiful. You know, so you work with them, not wanting to say if you do it, this, you know, consequence. Somewhat like consequence. Let me just like, because if you talk about, like, for instance, some parents say death, that's their consequence. Like, but Mom, you're still living. How did you know? So we might as well just...
Yeah. I think that was the mistake a lot of our parents. They touch you go carry belly.
Yes.
A lot of girls, they press, they touch. The belly no come.
And they now realize that there's
life.
nothing, but I'm actually feeling something because the body is wired at some point to feel a certain way because you have dopamine running through your serotonin level. And it's the stage where they are, everything is, their metabolism is, you know.
So if a child is exposed, right?
Okay.
Because we're still on the practicality. A child is already exposed. The child has probably seen pornography. The child has seen, you know, all of these things. How do you now walk back that child towards some level of sanity and, you know, bringing hopefully the innocence back?
Okay, if you can get the trust first.
Okay.
Now, do not sympathize. Maybe you need to employ empathy at this point, and then not even consequences. Now you want to start not negotiating. Holy Spirit, help me. What you want to do is heal through with the child. Like, you know this, it's normal. This happens. Let them know they are not alone.
And it's okay to have made the mistake.
Yes, it's okay, but, you know, moving on, this is what you need to know. You know, and do not go before the child, like, you know, wanting to be faster than the child. Like, find out what they already know. Find out what they've been exposed to prior to, you know, the time of counseling. And you find that as the child, you know, grows into healing, you follow that path, and, you know, with ease, it just goes that way. Because at every point in time, and that's why you find out a lot of, as kids, we were closer to certain aunties who were ready to listen to us. So you want to be a good listener. I don't want you to be a judge. I know you're my mom, please, but don't be my judge. Like, I've made a mistake. Can we move on to better days?
I've been grateful to God that I don't do judgments.
Yes.
But I was going to say, we talked about it before you came on board, about nudity. in front of your children, how does this impact? Because when I was growing up, my father and my mother, everybody were all naked in the house, walking up and down. We had 9 children with 2 father, 2 mother, So it was not a big deal for me. And
Absolutely.
I think because there are 2 sides to this story. Some will say, okay, you get comfortable seeing somebody naked. So when you see somebody naked for the first time, you are not startled, which was, my story. But I'm thinking now, again, in hindsight, again, with all the things that are happening with the internet and social media, a lot of people are condemning that. Do you agree that, nudity, or at some point, how do you balance nudity with your children?
Sometimes it plays a huge role. But at this point, you want to teach boundaries because what they see sort of influences. If you ask me, I want to be that free, but I'm a mom now, right? That doesn't mean sometimes they don't walk into me in my nude state, but oh, mom, sorry, you're changing. It's that easy. So there is no fright. There's no gesture of like, oh my goodness.
I get
you see how the flow, balance. There's the balance, right? Not like it's my private place, we just shut that door. Like some people like, what is about this nakedness? Yes. What about, what's it? Because everything is on the internet. You find 6 years wanting to ask. My mom gets startled when so when you're like, oh, boundaries, girl, would you knock the door at least? Because I'm naked, oh, sorry, mom.
They see it as no big deal.
No big deal. So they are comfortable, and it's also a big deal. Back to balance. Because if you ask me, just me and my man, I want to be, like all of this is just so much. But now you're into parenting. Now you see parenting doesn't change, even so, it just goes on and on. So find a balance and you're good. Because some persons are not like you.
Exactly.
Who, even to their fellow peers, they don't like, no, don't see me. And guess what? A lot of people are covering so much around body shaming, not being comfortable, not just because of also when it comes to sexual awareness and all of that. There's a lot to when it comes to being covered.
Okay. So this message is from Ade. He says,
in the UK.
Good evening, ladies. I think parents should be encouraged to teach their children on body parts and name it as it is called, than giving it a sweet name. The implications and end results should be disclosed. These children grows very fast nowadays from teenage age.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that's his message. So for me, I have 2 questions. I don't even know the one I'll take first, but let me still maintain the practicality. When it comes to a boy child and a girl child, I'm very particular about us getting it right with the boy child. I know that maybe the sort of trainings that the girl child have gotten might be considered as just talking about consequences and not having a proper conversation. But the girl child has been given a level of attention to a certain degree, and the boy child being neglected in that area.
Right.
And what you see is at the end of the day, the girl child will still bear the brunt of having a boy child who doesn't understand consent, doesn't understand boundaries, and thinks that the body of the girl is for his own pleasure, right? So what is the difference in the sex education for a girl child and for a boy child, if there is any, and how do we get it right?
Okay, so we already have a mentality around teaching sex education for both boys and girls. And I think I mentioned it earlier where we think that sex education was just meant for girls alone. If we understand that this is for children, and there's already a notion or what the system we're following, which is the patriarchy, we're in a world patriarchy culture, where it is okay for a boy. You see parents, they still do it. Even the 21st century kind of parents will say, don't you know when you do this, you will not marry a good husband and all of. So a lot has been guiding us from, time, years. It's as old as history. Yes. Where you say the boy is usually better than the girl. So, girls have just been, or women are made to just please the man, So back to how to. You want to be able to, first of all, have that mindset shift. Okay, take parenting, for instance, in my home. My husband does the parenting and I do it. Not just, meant for the mother alone to handle maybe parenting or sex education. A lot of people think it's meant for the, mothers alone, and women would tell their girl child and the girl child will grow into. No, when you know that even as a man of the house, you're able to also give that parenting, you see that you break that the gap. Area. Yes, and I always say something, if you cannot affect the society at large, start with where you are, people around you, your family. There's a balance in my home. So I think with that, you should be able to understand how to balance teaching the boy child, knowing that
men need to get involved in
Absolutely,
parenting.
100%. That's exactly what I'm expressing. And once you start noticing that, okay, if it's coming from my father, there's that sense of, oh, this means so much because both my mom and my dad are in this together. So we're a family.
But what if the child picks on one parent that they are comfortable talking to over the other parent?
It doesn't matter, actually. And sometimes you also want to do parenting together. And other times you want to, like this, I wouldn't want to say some practical examples, but for the sake of this conversation, you want to understand that, first of all, every child is comfortable with a particular, like I know the child is comfortable with me. I have 2 girls. And I know that the other girl is also comfortable with it. But it doesn't matter because there are also some conversations that we do together as family. And other conversations, like I think I'm closer with you, maybe the way setting, or I'm just drawn to you, maybe by your aura or anything. But that doesn't even stop sex education or parenting for families.
Okay, so yeah, I have grown up children. It's almost time. We are gisting and I forgot that time is going.
Okay.
So they are the stage. My first son is going to be 15, and the second one is going to be 13. So that first one is already at that stage where I know that only Jesus Christ can help me. You know, he's gotten to that
Stage
where everything is alive and he's
and
feeling,
thinking and
you know.
So
How do I manage? Because I'm trying to be practical, and I'm sure there are many women out there or many parents out there that have children in that now teen age, like the
proper
older
teen
teen, the
age,
proper, yeah.
teenage.
So how do you navigate, you know, talking to them? Because first of all, I try to make him extremely comfortable. So he always tells me everything, right? I'm not surprised or shocked, but how do you really manage their emotions to tell them that, because Issy asked the question about teaching them contraceptive. Me, I can't teach my son contraceptive, you know?
Right.
Yeah, so how do you manage
When
that?
you get to a certain level, you might be comfortable to do that. Now, I call this stage safe talk or safe
But as
conversation.
a parent, you know, you still see him at the eye of that
You would,
baby.
like my mom still sees me like, I'm like my daughter, you know. So you would never see your child like, okay, you're now an adult, except for a parent who is not intentional, a conscious parent. No matter how old your child, you would always still be a mom. So that stage should be called the safe stage or the safe talk or safe conversation. And this stage is more of maybe suggestive method to use and show care. And you know, do not impose, you know, on this, you know, this level. And this level is the point where you talk about everything: intimacy, sensuality. Sensuality has to do with maybe your thoughts, your belief, your countenance, you know, self-esteem, value.
Do you have
right?
a book on that? So I will just buy and give him to read.
So picking up from that, I saw a video on your page, or what did I say it, of someone teaching a child how to put on a condom using a banana or something.
Oh, okay.
Right. So at what age do you begin to do that for a boy child?
Okay, so you
Because
see,
if you're
we also need to be careful that the fact that we have sexual education or sex education doesn't mean everything you see is actually for your consumption, because a lot of things are quite misleading. I wouldn't be teaching my child, 8-year-old, how to wear a condom, like, please. Remember, let's not misuse the Western culture in as much as we're trying to become very comfortable, you know, free to talk
Liberal.
about and liberal, you know. We shouldn't miss the fact where what you teach, what you give has every reason to do with the future, or has an impact or effect, you know, in the future.
So at what age do you teach a boy child something about
We
condom?
wouldn't even say child at this point,
Okay.
because I wouldn't be encouraging
Teenager.
a child at maybe 10 years to how to wear a condom, because I would have gone through stages of my, you know, sex education, and peradventure a child desires, I would go back to consent and then consequences. Like, if truly this is what you, not the way the world will want to teach it, in the way that it comes with teaching. Like, you know, like a lecturer, there are some lecturers you like, I like the way this man teaches because it gives me reason to choose, right? But that's why I won't give you the opportunity, I won't put you in a place where I would give you maybe a reason to choose. where you know
Give
which
them
is right,
options.
options where you can pick from, and you decide.
So that when
I don't
you
know
take
if
the-
LC feels what, because you see,
I get what you're saying, but you're still not answering the question.
Okay.
Because in giving them the options, right? You are giving me an option, it means that the
you know, you're
contraceptive
asking
is
me
part
what
of the
you know.
option.
You're asking me what I think. Like I said, I will still teach you as a teacher, as a lecturer. I will tell you this. This is what it means. This is what it takes, right? But personally, I wouldn't be telling a 10-year-old how to wear a condom. If that works.
I know.
Finally.
I know of a young man who was whose mother was, was a teacher, and the mother said, "Okay, now you're a big boy." She knows that he hangs around some kind of crowd as a young boy. I'm trying to step in with what you just said, but when the boy got into university at the age of 16, so at that time his hormones they've gone haywire, So what she just did was like, she didn't say anything to him. All she just did was like, okay, now you're in university, so you're a big boy now. She just gave him a pack of condoms and said bye-bye.
Which
is great, but that was what I was expressing. But like the style of teaching matters, right? Like I said, you were talking about a 10-year-old.
No, I said, when do you introduce it?
When
You're
time?
16-year-old, you see your boy child.
Remember when I was talking about parenting, sex education, find out what they know.
Okay.
And from there, it will give you a decision to know what to give a child per time.
I love that.
A 15-year-old, like, okay, you're going to school. I'm going to tell you about sex, STDs, say it. I'm going to give you we have female condoms, we have male. That's another stage. Like I said, 0 to 3, you know what to teach, because sometimes it's questioning, labeling, from 8 to maybe 13. Hormones are building up, puberty is coming, so the education increases with time. And there will be a time where you want to talk about sensuality for maybe in case of saying, yes, I do. And that comes into play. How many persons usually take sex classes before they get married? We just want to do counseling.
We have to bring you back.
The counseling and the sex classes, the
Thank you
clips
so
that I've seen.
I would love to bring you back to talk about a couple, husband and wife.
Thank you so much.
Because, some things are left for the experts. But we had a fantastic conversation.
Absolutely.
You see, that parent that gave the boy a pack of condoms, he might not even use it at the end of the day.
No, it's a lie.
She psyched him.
I know.
But you know what? Before we go, go ensure you
He
follow
will
us.
use it. He will use it. As I said, will you also, while giving the condom,
Can
will
you
teach
let
them
me
how
sign
to
out?
use it?
Before we go, ensure you follow us on Instagram at PlusTvAfrica. You can interact with us further, drop your comments. And importantly, we're planning a big giveaway to say thank you to you for believing in the Ways brand and for following the conversation. So do well to follow us at PlusTvAfrica on Instagram. Thank you again so much, Coach Jessica. I loved every minute with you. All right, so if you missed today's quote, here it is again. Before the child ever gets to school, it will have received crucial, almost irrevocable sex education. And this will have been taught by the parents who are not aware of what they are doing. God help us.
Amen.
Please, so parents, don't feign ignorance. Go and learn from the experts. Stay with us. Abi?
Yes.
We're going.
We are going. Don't
See
stay
you
with us.
tomorrow.